So Klaus Schwab is already there, Sheryl Sandberg, Tom Glocer, Andrew Mason. Where is Andrew? Stéphane Richard. Stéphane. There are still some people lost. Stéphane. Andrew. Mason. Stéphane Richard, Sheryl Sandberg. Who else? Tom Glocer, Stéphane Richard, Sheryl Sandberg, Klaus Schwab. Jimmy. Where's Jimmy Wells? He was with me no so long ago. Stéphane is here. Jimmy Wells. He cannot run. He told me that. Okay. First of all, and again, I would like to apologize because we are slightly late. We had, I must say, a privilege, which is to be invited by the President of la République for lunch with a few CEOs. And it was difficult to say to the President of la République, okay, Monsieur President, we will stop the question here, and because we have something else to do. So we had to go to the end of the lunch. It was a wonderful conversation, and we are starting now a fantastic panel, Internet and Society. We will try to see what is the impact of Internet on society, and for that we have a remarkable set of people who have great experience and who are all best tailored to answer the key questions. What I will do without further ado is to start immediately, and I will not make an introduction of the panel before. I will do that along the presentation, and I'm starting with Professor Schwab. Professor Schwab founded the World Economic Forum in 1971 with the idea of getting together stakeholders of society. And since then, most of the most important event in the world happened in Davos, and notably everything about digital and globalization, and since recently, digital divide and the global agenda. Klaus, as the chairman and founder of the World Economic Forum, you decided 3 years ago to start up a reflection about the world governance. And here I'm quoting a demonstrator in Cairo. We use Facebook. No, it's not for you, Sharon. You will come later. We use Facebook to plan our demonstration, Twitter to coordinate our actions, and YouTube to inform the rest of the world. The ongoing Jasmine revolution rocks the Arab world and could reach other regions of the world. How does this fit with our existing political structures, which basically come from the 20th century, if not the 19th?
Maurice, before responding to your question, I just would like to make one comment. Being in some way a colleague, I have to pay my deep respects for having been able to organize such a conference in 2.5 months. I know what it means, so bravo.
Thank you.
Now, if we look at the question, what is the, more or less, what is the impact of the Internet on society and, of course, on global governance? I'm concerned with two basic developments. The first one is we speak about domestication. And the President this morning referred to the industrial revolution. But I would say, when we talk about domestication, it was when people became dwellers or farmers, and they developed tools. And the tools served how to do things. Now, with the internet, of course, it's a tool. We can do certain things better. We can increase productivity. But on the other hand, it's more than a tool. The internet has become part of your DNA. In some way, we have outsourced certain parts as an individual, as a company, and as a government. We have outsourced certain parts of our own personality. And this offers great opportunities because, on the one hand, we have now a possibility to really share our DNA with a global community, and this will have an impact on global governance. But on the other hand, it gives also rise of some of the concerns which were expressed, particularly also during the luncheon, the issue of how much do we still own ourselves. So this is one fundamental development which we are following up. The second one, when we look at the society today, we see a power shift from the center, from the middle class to the old people in an aging society. The old people will go and they will vote, and they will vote against change. And you see the shift from the middle class to the young generation. And the young generation will less have the tendency to vote. They have other ways to express themselves. And I think this dilemma between the old and the young will play a major role in defining the right governance on the national and global level. Now, final sentence, I believe that global governance tomorrow has to be based on a multi-stakeholder concept. Governments alone cannot solve the issues. Business cannot solve the issue. Civil society cannot solve the issue. We have to cooperate together. And I think this meeting is a very good demonstration of this kind of togetherness.
Thank you, Klaus. Moving to Sheryl Sandberg. Sheryl is one of the most impressive executives in Silicon Valley I met. And Sheryl, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you with us. Sheryl is the CEO of Facebook, and she has spent a few years with Google. And I would like, as Facebook is by a small margin the largest social network, can you, and social is really what is the most influential aspect in society, in the behavior of the people and how they use it. Can you tell us, how do you see the impact of social network and Facebook, the life of the people, and how this does affect society?
Yeah, you know, for us, we think about the web evolving. The web is evolving from what is an information web to a social web. And the social web is premised on two things. The first is authentic identity. When you think about as you use much of the web, you're really anonymous. You get the same information other people do. But when you use Facebook or other social networks, you really start with who you are. You know, you're Maurice Lévy, I am Sheryl Sandberg. So it's the first time technology is powering us as individuals. The second thing is that you move from information retrieval to social discovery. So information retrieval, I know what topic I'm researching, I go online, I get that information. Social discovery means I don't have a topic at all. It means I'm not looking for anything, but my friends can tell me what they want to tell me. And when you think about the ability to form communities, when you think about the ability to influence, when you think about the ability for one person to influence another, to do everything from, you know, demanding that Cadbury bring back the Wispa candy bar, to things like more important, you know, democratic revolutions, it's all about being able to get to people as they really are, form real communities, and do it in modes of discovery so that you are able to influence. You know, for us, we think that these tools can bring people closer in. So when you think about voting, which Klaus mentioned, you know, the 2008 Obama election in the United States, compared to the past two, had 6 to 13% more young people voting than had voted over the past two elections. Largely, we think, because of these tools brought people in. So for us, the social web is a matter of inclusion. It's giving every single individual the power of voice so that they can use their voice to influence the world as they see fit.
Have you been able to see beyond the Obama election and what we know about what happened in Tunisia or in Cairo? Have you been able to see in normal social life or to measure what has been, what could have been the impact of this new tool for all these young people?
You know, increasingly what you see is that the impact is broad across the world. You know, Facebook has over 500 million users, which would make us, if we were a country, which we're not, the third most largest. That's the wrong way to think about Facebook. The right way to think about Facebook is millions of overlapping communities held together by different interests. So people do things like, I like to step on crunchy leaves, you know, on the floor. Not that important to everyone, but important to them, all the way through to poking, to sharing pictures, to starting revolutions. What's interesting for us is that we just create a platform technology, but watching the way the world uses the technology, from everything from the most mundane, everyday type of sharing to the most profound, we think shows the power of what this technology brings, and importantly, when it's powering authentic identity, who we really are as individuals.
Okay, Jimmy, you heard that I have the wrong view on the use of Facebook. So maybe I have also the wrong view on Wikipedia. You have built something which is just incredible because normally encyclopedia is created by some highly specialized specialist, and this is highly selected through a very careful, cautious approach. And I guess that you have been confronted with a few issues. First, what I would like to know is how do you see the impact of Wikipedia in the way people are learning, approaching new things, etc., searching information, even if they go through Google to Wikipedia? And second, I would like your point of view regarding some of the people who say, okay, there has been things reported on Wikipedia on myself which are belonging to the past, and they would like to see that forgotten, and they are struggling to get this forgotten, and it's not happening.
Well, so I guess on the first question, how Wikipedia has affected the way people relate to knowledge or collect knowledge, get knowledge, it's fairly straightforward. The tendency today is for people to look things up in a way that wasn't true 30, 40, 50 years ago. If you are driving home and you hear on the radio that something horrible has happened in Azerbaijan, and you think, oh yeah, Azerbaijan, I sort of know where that is. I have some vague knowledge, but I don't remember very well. You will go and look it up. People find it very easy to become more informed about news events and things like this, the background of all kinds of things that are in the media. But I think what might be even more interesting to contemplate is the impact that Wikipedia is beginning to have today in the languages of the developing world, where we are now in over 200 languages. Many of them are still quite small, but in many of them we're getting to be legitimately sized. When you look at a language like Swahili, for example, there has never existed an encyclopedia in Swahili before. It just, nobody ever bothered to do this before, and now we have over, I think, around 30,000 entries now. I'm not sure if they hit that milestone yet. And it's growing, and the community there is very excited about the fact that in their own language, they're able to make available information to everyone who wants to know anything, which was just never possible before. That's going to be a huge impact on the world, as all of the people around the world who previously lived their lives fairly much in darkness about history and what was going on around them now are going to have that information at their fingertips. Science, technology, all that. The second question was about what if people, if something's in Wikipedia that they would rather forget. I guess, there's the old saying, an elephant never forgets, and Wikipedia is a very big elephant. So it's.
Okay, we will come back to this in a minute in the general discussion. I would like to turn to Andrew Mason. For people who do not know, the forte of Andrew is not technology, it's music. And that is probably the reason why he has chosen to create Groupon right after the point. I'm not sure that there is any relation to music, but that is a fact. But he is most known for having refused a check of $6 billion. I understand because it was just dollars. I'm not sure that if it was euros, it would have had the same reaction. I have for you also two questions. One is how Groupon is helping in the development of e-commerce and building loyalty to the brand, and how do you see the evolution of e-commerce thanks to the kind of tool that you are building?
So, as big as e-commerce seems to all of us, still only about 5% of commerce happens online. The other 95% happens offline. And in fact, 80% of people's disposable income is spent within 2 miles of the house. And that's kind of the world in which Groupon lives. So thinking about what we're doing and how we're having an impact on local commerce by enabling local e-commerce, if you stop and think about what sites like Facebook and sites like Twitter have done to enable the little guy, the individual, and give them a voice where they previously didn't have one, in a way we're doing the same kind of thing for the independent local business owner. Any small business that wanted to do marketing and get the word out previously didn't really have a good option. They could advertise in the yellow pages, they could do a radio or television ad, and nothing really worked and it wasn't measurable. So the way Groupon works is these merchants run an offer. They don't actually pay until the customer comes in the door. So it's the first form of real performance-based marketing or customer acquisition that's ever been available for these small businesses. And that is leveling the playing field for them against all these national brands that people have traditionally gone to. And by offering consumers a curated daily offer where we're doing the work of researching these businesses and ensuring that they're high quality and the customer is going to have a good experience, we take a lot of the risk that's out of it that usually is what drives people to go to Subway even when there's 5 local restaurants right around the corner. So thinking about how it's going to evolve, we're now moving from a model that's not just these daily offers that we're pushing people, which is largely about serendipitous discovery, doing something you wouldn't otherwise do. But we're experimenting with a new platform called Groupon Now, which allows consumers to pool deals in real time on whatever they want that are only available for merchants within a few hours, a time window of a few hours. And the idea is the merchant runs those deals when they need more customers, and the consumer can get a deal nearby on whatever they want at that moment. And what we're trying to do, the daily deal thing was kind of easy compared to what we're trying to do now, which is the hard stuff that Facebook and Wikipedia have already pulled off, which is finding a way to intercept people's intent or people's impulses. So right now when somebody thinks, I wonder when Einstein was born, they satisfy that impulse. It's been programmed into their brain to go check Wikipedia, and that's hard and that's pretty cool. Or when people think, I wonder what that weird friend I had in high school is doing today. They know to go check Facebook, and they're probably going to find out. So now we're trying to intercept an impulse when people say, I'm hungry or I'm bored and I'm looking for something to do. We want people to go to Groupon and get that impulse satisfied. And if we can do that, then we think we can change the way that people buy in their city in the same way that e-commerce services like Amazon have changed the way that people buy products.
Good, thank you. Stéphane Richard is a unique personality. After being in the best elite school of France, he became advisor to the French Minister of Industry. He was in charge of IT and electronics. He followed that with a series of fascinating jobs, including becoming an entrepreneur and going back to the administration as Chief of Staff of Finance Minister Christine Lagarde. And he is now the Chairman and CEO of France Telecom Orange, where he is doing a fantastic transformation. One of the questions that we have to deal with in the future is, and regarding the impact on society, is obviously how we have access to the net. And one of the key issues that we are facing is the fact that we are seeing a geometric progression of volumes of video on the net. So how are you dealing with this? Who will be paying for? And what is the equality of the people in front of the cost regarding this kind of operation? Is it the same for a corporation or for just an individual, whatever the volume is?
Well, first, you are right to say that the network issue in the internet age is a critical issue. And nobody should never forget that without the networks, there is no Google, no Facebook, no Groupon, no Wikipedia, nothing.
So you want a toll for that? Another one? Okay, you see him coming. You see where he's coming to.
This is just a physical reality that, once again, I think it's not totally observed to remind. But this is just to say that when we are thinking in terms of future uses and development of internet throughout the world, you mentioned the figures of the explosion of this data traffic on the networks, which are, as a matter of fact, very spectacular. I can just mention the figure of the Parisian mobile network, where you are today. Every week in our network, the total volume of traffic, of data traffic, increases by 5%. 5% every week, which means that the total traffic is multiplied by 12.6 every year. So this is just an example to say that there is a major issue around the networks and the capacity of people that are responsible for networks to invest heavily in the networks, in equipments, in spectrum, in order to make this possible and to make this internet revolution, digital revolution, and all the dreams that it generates become a reality for most people. What we face today, of course, is a whole set of issues, but I would mention only a few of them. The first is that I think one of the big fears, big concerns about the internet world of tomorrow is an equal access, or at least an equivalent kind of access for most people around the world to the internet. It is far from being the case today. There are entire countries where access to the web is just impossible, or is possible within a very poor quality of service. And even in developed countries, like France, for instance, there are places, some communities, some rural areas where the access to internet is a problem. The first maybe thing that everybody should take care about is to see the conditions to develop the networks everywhere in the world in order to make this access to the web easy and possible, and with a high bandwidth access everywhere. And this raises the question of the economic model within the internet. Because in fact, well, internet is a marvelous world with universal access to knowledge, to education, to culture, to a whole set of new services. But in this same world, there are also players that are big companies with P&Ls, with share prices, with stock exchange, with investors. So internet is also a matter of money. It's not only a matter of big principles, freedom, equality. It's also a matter of business, of creating growth, jobs. And when it comes to economic models, the point is to find the good relationships between the investment needs and the revenues. And it is true to say that today, in the internet as it is today, there is a gap, a widening gap, between the pressure on investment, which lies essentially on the telecom operators, but because they have to invest heavily, as I mentioned, in the networks in order to make this possible. And on the other hand, on the revenue stream, and we have to sort out this problem. So a big part of this job is certainly within ourselves, our companies. We have to invent new approaches to our customers in order to ensure a quality of service, maybe some differentiated pricing plans according to quality of service and to the type of access, but clearly the big concern that everybody should have in mind is the collapse of the networks. So we will do, of course, everything to avoid this, invest, but in the same time, find the good economic approaches on a cooperation basis with everybody, especially with over-the-top players, in which, with whom we want to have a very permanent and constructive dialogue in order to find the future economic models that will enable us to invest.
And I guess that our friends at the innovation session will have to speak about how to improve the fluidity of the system and the capabilities of the system through innovation. Tom, you have heard Stéphane. There is money in the internet. And as the largest information and financial information agency, which has been transformed under your leadership in a big way, you have probably a point of view on that. I have for you two very important questions. The first one is that Reuters has transformed itself digitally, I think, in the mid-90s. It started to be transformed in the mid-90s, and I would very much like to see how this has affected society and how this has affected the life of the people in the business or elsewhere. The second question is regarding your own point of view when it comes to some kind of information which are coming to be knowledgeable to all the people. So there is the issue of WikiLeaks, and we have seen what happened. There is also currently a fear that the identity of the people who have been killing bin Laden is known to everyone. So I would like to know how are you managing this aspect, which is in contradiction with one of the important rules of internet, which is transparency.
Well, thanks for Maurice for giving me the most difficult two questions. Let me start with the second one, which is the balance which has always existed between a publisher's natural tendency toward transparency, toward publishing whatever facts they have, versus on limited occasion, and we all have this at different times, being in possession of such important and sensitive information that it outweighs your general inclination to publish. And much like President Sarkozy was saying this morning, I think we'd all recognize that nothing is absolute, that we don't want to live in a world of absolute chaos, nor certainly autocratic control. The art and the difficulty comes in where do you draw those lines, number one, and number two, who do you rely on to do it? So in the traditional model, you could rely on, let's say, a handful of publishers. The means of distribution were so expensive that I alone have the Gutenberg press, and I have a responsibility, and you can call me up or pay me a visit and say, please don't print the name of the spy whose family would be in danger. The interesting development is, of course, the ubiquity of the publishing mechanism means that who do you call? How do you stop the name of a famous English footballer being tweeted and retweeted and posted? You can't sort of round up the usual suspects anymore. And, you know, I think what we have to realize is that all technology, but the internet in particular, has a tendency to reduce friction, reduce costs, and therefore has great potential, is well aligned with democratic elements, but it also puts tools in the hands of pedophiles and terrorists who want to share bomb-making materials. And, you know, I can tell you what we do. We do self-censor against a natural inclination to publish. In terms of our economic model, what we decided on a long time ago is that professionals who are en route in a hurry from point A to B need a combination of information and software tools to do their jobs, and that's what we carved out as our mission. It is perhaps an easier route to monetization of news and related information because, you know, the needs of the bench scientist at a large pharma firm or a trader or even a lawyer at work are more predictable, and they're not looking for entertainment or enlightenment. They're looking for, how do I make faster decisions and better decisions? So in the end, I sometimes say our business comes down to one big signal-to-noise filter. That's what we're about.
Thank you, Tom. What I would like to do now is to turn to the audience. So I would like to take some 15 or 20 minutes to have questions from the audience. So what you will do is first to raise your hand. You will try to put a question or to make an observation which is quite quick. And if you have a question which is directed to somebody, please name that somebody in order that they are not going all to prison. Okay. First here. Yes.
Hello, Christian Sigler. This is for Andrew. How do you see the distinction between Groupon now and Facebook deals? One, and if you are really saying that 80% of all shopping is taking place 2 miles away from home, how are you going to make Groupon an international hyperlocal game play?
Andrew, this is for you.
So we have a product called Groupon Now. Did you mean, this is maybe a bad product name. Did you mean, what do you see as the difference between Groupon Now, like right now, or Groupon Now, the product? I'll just answer the question how I want to. So, the distinction, so Facebook deals, I'll let Cheryl comment on how she thinks it's different. We typically don't comment on competitive products other than to say that we're happy for consumers and merchants that competition exists, and we think it makes us better. So Facebook is a wildly innovative company, and we hope that they can come up with some awesome ideas and approaches. And if they end up doing some cool stuff that completely demolishes Groupon, then it's probably for the better of society. So I'm glad for it.
Okay. Cheryl,
so
I thought you had finished, right?
Oh, no, I was going to answer the second question, but I won't. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay, Cheryl, this hot potato.
I mean, to answer the question about how Facebook deals are different, there are a lot of deals products in the market, and the way we think of deals as an advertising product, I think, as Andrew said, it's an advertising product that's very performance-based. The product we have just launched, which is really in a beta phase and an early phase, is very social. It's not about deals for individuals, it's about deals for groups, and it really ties into the social graph. We think it's an incredibly innovative space, and we work closely with Groupon, and we work closely with others as well.
Andrew, you want to complete? Was it fine? Okay, we move to the next. Here, second row, third row.
George Norman, whistle.co.uk. A question for Jimmy. I'm going to use the dreaded word WikiLeaks and transparency. What do you think about the effects that has now had on the perception of the internet community from the general public, and the fear that we could go too far with openness and transparency?
Well, that's a good question. I guess the first thing I should point out, which I think everyone here should already know, is that Wikipedia has absolutely nothing to do with WikiLeaks whatsoever. And I say that about 4 or 5 times a day. But still, I'm an internet user, so I suppose I can comment on the question. I think that there may be a perception by some people that WikiLeaks has gone too far. Certainly, there have been concerns raised by Amnesty International and Reporters Without Borders just about, are they being careful enough? Will they be careful enough about the kind of information that Tom was discussing earlier? When you've got information that may, embarrass the French president, okay, I think everybody will say that's, if you don't like it or you do like it. If you've got information that may compromise human rights workers in difficult situations and put their lives at risk, I think that's a different matter. But I think that WikiLeaks does understand that. In some of their public pronouncements, you wouldn't get that impression. But they are working with responsible publishers who are at least trying to do the right thing. So I think, on balance, to date, if you ask me, what does the internet think of this? What is the average perception of ordinary people of the internet based on this? I think it's mixed. I think people have very mixed feelings about the whole thing.
Okay, there is somebody who is courageous with a jacket, a tie. By the way, we had a negotiation with the sky. We had the choice between sun and rain, and we have decided to choose for sun. Okay, go ahead.
I guess I should have worn my T-shirt then. My name is John Penny, and I had a question for you. We've talked a lot about the transformative power of the technology across all levels of society, young and old. Obviously, this will impact education and the way people acquire knowledge going forward. If you were a sociologist looking back 20 years from the future to now, what would you describe as the most important issues that we're facing in terms of the technologies you've all described and education? Because this strikes me as a fundamentally important policy-making and future-oriented area that we need to be very attentive to.
Are you directing the question to somebody specifically?
In general, anybody who'd like to pick
anybody.
up on that.
Klaus? He's a professor.
I think when we look back in 20 years, we will have seen a change from what I would say formation, which means that you get your education at university level, to lifelong education. And I would see in 20 years a system where even companies certify every manager every year according to achievements in managing the additional knowledge. Now, the internet, of course, offers a great tool, but my forecast would be that with the integration of much more multi-point voice and video capabilities into the internet, the notion of lifelong education will become a distinctive feature of societies and be essential for competitiveness.
Tom, you want to complete?
Yeah, I agree with Professor Schwab, but I also think we will recognize a point where we make a much clearer distinction between what education do we need as human beings in our onboard human brain and what will allow agents to do for us. You know, schools for 40 years have dealt with the issue of, do I let a calculator into my math class or not? But as the amount of information, as the sophistication of machine assist becomes more and more important, we will have to think through as a society, you know, where we want to draw that line, and that'll come in a few years.
Maurice?
We have a question here. Yes, Jimmy, you will complete right after the question.
Thank you, Maurice. Mariana Danilovich, CEO of Ultralive TV. If you were to sit in the G8 summit in a day or two and discuss the issues that would actually make a change for the world and the third world countries, what are some social initiatives you would recommend?
Okay, so Jimmy, you complete
just a quick remark on the previous question,
and you answer this one, and then Stéphane.
In fact, I'll maybe try to combine the two, because what I wanted to say about the previous question, when we look back 20 years from now and we look to see what has changed, one of the most important changes that we're going to take note of is that the next billion people are going to come online. There's about 2 billion people online now. The next billion, in 20 years, maybe the next 2 billion people. And those people are not coming online from the US, Europe. They're coming online from China, from India, from Africa. And so we're going to start having participation in the global conversation from people that we've never really heard from before. They are going to have access to Wikipedia and Facebook and Twitter and all these tools. And it's going to be incredibly transformative for the entire planet in ways that are very, very difficult to predict. So in terms of social programs to pursue, I think we all have to pay attention to getting the world wired up, getting people online. I think it's incredibly important.
And we will take your comment to the G8 regarding the African countries. Please.
Hi, Ajay Chowdhury from Enki. Monsieur Richard already alluded to this, but I'd be interested in the rest of the panel's views on net neutrality. I mean, this is an area that governments are going to have to get involved in some way or another, and there's a real danger that if we go down the route of eliminating net neutrality, that it's going to cut out a lot of innovation that happens on the web.
Stéphane? I think it's for you.
Well, actually, the net neutrality issue or debate is a major one. And by the way, I think it is a debate for everybody, not only for carriers or telecom operators. Let me just take an interesting example of this. If today you go to Google, and if you put net neutrality in the search engine of Google, the answers that you're going to get are very interesting. The first 8 answers in Google are developing, let's say, ideas and theories that are a little inspired by Google. So this is just to mention that net neutrality is not only related to the way the networks are used, are managed by telecom operators. We can take another interesting example, which is the management of application shops, stores, by some players. I think about one of them, a big one, who has been, I think, a tremendous contributor to the digital age and in the recent years, but who has a very strict management of its app shop, saying to some applications yes and no to others. Where is the net neutrality in that part of the landscape? So, yes, we should have a debate, an ongoing and permanent debate about net neutrality, but once again, not limited to the question of the use of networks. And then there is, beyond this, a physical reality that I just remind a few minutes ago, which is that spectrum bandwidth is a scarce asset for everybody. And everybody should be aware that it is a scarce asset and that all of us should work together in order to see how we can use properly and smartly this scarce asset. Because if we don't do this, I can tell you that the future of Internet will be congestion and maybe one day a collapse. So if we clearly want to avoid this, which would be, I think, a disaster for everybody, we have to work all together, service people, network operators, in order to see the good method, the good tools in order to use properly our networks. This has nothing to do with net neutrality. It is just a common sense issue.
Yes, please.
Hello, yes, my name is Christophe Kremer. I have a question for Cheryl, because we're talking about internet and society. I think, how long do you think a child should spend on Facebook? Do you think they would be your children? How long do you allow them to spend on Facebook? Do you think they would be better meeting children, going in the garden and playing otherwise? Or do you think that the technology will be enough to regulate your children and do, what is best for them?
Okay, Cheryl.
Yeah. So my children are 6 and 3, and so they don't spend any time on Facebook, mostly because they don't read. But joking aside, the minimum age for Facebook is 13, and we work hard to enforce that. Your question is a big one on what is appropriate use of the technology, and I don't think it just applies to children. I think it applies to people of all ages. People ask all kinds of questions. If people use Facebook, will anyone ever speak to each other anymore? Or will we all, sit in rooms by ourselves and Facebook each other? Will we destroy the very society in which we operate? We think not. But seriously, the issue of how much a child should use Facebook is one for that child and parents. What we think we enable are communities. Communities where parents can connect to children and children can connect to parents. And the idea of self-regulation that parents and children need to figure out what the right amount of time is really one for them to figure out.
Okay, we have a question. Somebody is desperate with his arm raised. Stand up. Have a micro.
Thank you. Chris Meyer from Monitor Talent. Professor Schwab referred to the Internet as a democratizing and empowering technology. Last time around when we developed a new technology, an industrial technology, it tended to concentrate power and privilege holders of capital, and we built a society around that in the West. Now, the fast-growing societies of India and China, Brazil, the rest, are going to take this democratizing technology, put it in a society with a different set of values. And if this is a panel on the Internet and society, I think we can ask, what are we going to see there as these societies build a new kind of society enabled by the Internet? What will be different there, and what might we adopt in the West? I'll ask that to Professor Schwab.
Okay. Klaus?
I would say the power will be centered very much around the young generation in the future. And here I have a concern. Even before we saw what happened in Tunisia and Egypt, I said we may have a kind of second 68, as it is expressed
68.
in France. And the reason was, when we look at the unemployment of young people, the aspirations of young people, the many university graduates who come to the market, they have now a possibility to express in a very strong way their indignations. And I think what we have seen in Tunisia and in Egypt is not limited to undemocratic countries. Let's take what we see in Spain at the moment, with a youth employment of over 40%. So if we do not solve this issue of employment for the young people, then we will have this kind of reactions from the young generation. And it will be a reaction based on a very strong empowerment. And even democratic countries like Spain now are not protected against such a reaction. So employment, employment, employment.
We have one question here, and
thank you.
then it will be the man behind in blue.
Thank you, Mr. Lévy. Divina Frau-Meggs from the Sorbonne University, talking from a perspective of civil society. You've been mentioning multi-stakeholderism, but I don't see it. I don't see civil society on the podium. It can be maybe in the room. I don't see that many women on the podium. Thank you, Cheryl, for saving the day. I don't see that many young people around, though they are certainly talking about them a lot, sort of absentee constitution here. So I think, like everybody, I welcome the idea that governments are starting to talk about this idea of governance, that they are including the business community. We would like to see more civil society in the dialogue, at the beginning of a dialogue. And so I'd like to know what you think about the idea not of self-regulation, but the idea of co-regulation, which is to say involving really the three partners at the beginning of a design, and preferably with a human rights base at the design. Thank you.
Okay. I will take part of the question, and maybe my friends will answer, and Jimmy maybe. First, quality of the woman in the panel is by itself a demonstration that we need 5 men in order to be equal to Cheryl. Second, when you will go through all the presentation and all the panels and all the discussion, you will have people from university, people from the civil society, etc. Jimmy, you want to complete?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think you're right, that we do need more participation in this whole process. I did want to point out Wikipedia is a charity. We're a nonprofit, so I would consider myself civil society in that regard. But at the same time, I think it is very important when we do have multi-stakeholder approaches that we do bring in all kinds of different people. I was actually pleased to see here, sort of throughout the crowd, various well-known bloggers and people like this who are not just from the industry. When I was coming to this, people expressed to me a fear. They said, it just sounds like a club of big businesses to talk to the politicians. Who else is there? And I'm happy to say there's quite a few interesting people here who don't fit that pattern, but I just think it's absolutely critical to keep that on the agenda.
But we will learn if we have a second EG8. I can assure you that we will learn from your comment. We will have just 2 more questions. So one here, yes.
Andrew Richet from the Personal Democracy Forum. Sir, my question is first to the audience. How many people here have actually read the terms of service on any recent internet service or device you have bought? Could you please raise your hands? Okay, so here's the idea, and it's for Jimmy, but as long as Andrew and Cheryl and the rest of the panelists are there, you might like this idea. How about a site on Wikipedia, let's call it Before You Agree, where the public has an opportunity to rewrite the terms of service into a language that they can actually understand?
Okay, Jimmy, you have a free new business.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. That is actually very, very interesting, though. But certainly, I'm on the board of Creative Commons, which is an organization which creates licenses that help ordinary people share their work under conditions. And one of the big problems that Creative Commons helps to solve is that the law is so complicated. And one of the great things that Creative Commons has done is there's always the human-readable version of the license that just explains in very simple terms what does it mean. And then there's all the legalese there for people like Cheryl, I guess, who like to read such things. And I do think that all sites should be encouraged to have, for all of their legal policies and privacy policies on the site, not only the very strong, sort of very detailed legalese that no one reads, but also a human-readable version that just tells me, what am I agreeing to here? I think that's really important.
We did this. We actually relaunched our terms of service a while ago, about a year and a half ago, and made it two things. We made it very simple English, simple as we could make it for people to read, because of exactly the kind of comments you're raising. And the second thing is that we gave our users, people around the world, the right to vote. If we made changes, we put it out for comment. If we get enough comments back, we submit it to a vote. So really trying to get people involved in both understanding the terms of service and getting involved. We agree with the suggestion.
It will be the last question now. So make it interesting.
Oh, boy. Hi.
There's no pressure.
Chris Tuttle. This question, I think, is for Cheryl.
Again?
I have a 14-year-old who seems to, be going on 8 in terms of Facebook use. But my question is, we all talk about enablement, and it's all great, and Facebook's a leader. But this is about society and policy. And there are all these things that happen on Facebook that is, you've been sent a hug, accept the hug, and you agree to have your bank records, published on the internet. So there's been great progress in terms of service. I know it's a joke, but it's hard.
Making sure everyone else knows.
But it's hard to see or understand how much time Facebook and Google and some of the other leading monopolies, if you will, are really investing in protecting the privacy, the fair trade, the kind of things that the president talked about this morning.
Okay.
So it's interesting. There's a lot in that question. So there's a couple of different things I think you're hitting on. One is, how do people use the tool? And I think it speaks to the other gentleman's question about time for kids on this. It's a tool like any others. How much time should people spend on any one thing is really up to them to depend on with their families. When you think about privacy, we have a very clear view of privacy, which is that people are trusting us with their personal information, and we take it very seriously. It's the most important thing we do. And so we have very clear understanding of this, which is that it's your data. You can put it on Facebook. You can choose to share it. We don't share it for you. You can choose to delete it, and we enable all of that. If you choose to use different services on Facebook, we make it very clear you are giving your data to this third party. I think there is a very interesting question going on for all of us, which is all of these tools can be empowering, can connect people, can also, change the world in different ways, but they also come with very serious demands for people to understand what they're doing and to take privacy really seriously. We think it's core to our, value we provide users to do that. We will continue to do that. And we think the dialogue between government and between the private sector and civil society on these issues is really important.
Okay, now we turn to the panel, if you allow me to do that. I have 2 questions, pretty quick, to everyone, because these are part of the things that we will be bringing to the G8 meeting. So your conclusions are those which will be taken amongst a few others. One question is relative to what has been said by UK government last week, who plans to publish and allow for comments and recommendation on policy, with the government being obligated to respond. That's one question. The second is, amongst the things which have been said during that session, what is the one that you pick as a recommendation regarding internet and society? Jimmy.
So the first question was about what? Should governments do this?
Yes.
Well, yes.
What is your reaction?
Yes, clearly, I think...
You feel it's fine, it's good, it's something which should be shared?
So the idea that democratic governments, that all governments should take feedback from their citizens to modify their policies is, without question, a great thing. What's interesting today is that we have the opportunity to get feedback from people more than just once every few years at an election. We can actually have a dialogue amongst between the citizens and the government and amongst the citizens. However, the one thing that I will say, managing Wikipedia, which is an enormous large conversation, is that it doesn't happen automatically. The software, if all the government does is post a proposed law and there's a giant message board for comments, half of them will be spam, half of them will be idiots. You really have to, we don't really know yet exactly how to do this. government should be experimenting with figuring out how to have a dialogue with the citizens.
Klaus?
Very short, and I come back to your comment and to the stakeholder concept. I would express it in the following way: go from dialogue to co-design.
Good. Sharon?
Very supportive of the two-way dialogue. Want to see technology empower the kind of cooperation we're talking about here.
Stéphane?
I would say create the best conditions for investment in the digital economy, especially investment in the networks.
Andrew?
Yes, I'm also supportive.
You don't want to add anything?
No.
Good.
Okay, I'll take Andrews.
You take the time.
So first, no code, no tool takes the place of personal responsibility and accountability. My kids are now 11 and almost 13. I wrote Cheryl a couple of years ago asking, what's the age policy? She answered back 13. My kids said, oh, well, we can just get around that. We'll just lie. And I said, no, you won't. That's not how we act in our house. So the tools will always allow you to do something, but doesn't take the place of personal responsibility. The second issue is, be really careful when you legislate. I mean, the trouble with codes it's easy to get them adopted. They become like the layers of Pompeii, and people don't go back and undo them, and it will just absolutely ossify our system.
Thank you. I would like to thank all our panelists. They have been great. They have been precise, responsive, and I'm sure that you have enjoyed this as much as they did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.